to the Shade Tree Committee. We'll kick this off with a Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, super. So let's see, first up on the agenda are the September meeting minutes. Any comments or corrections? Motion to approve?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll go to the residents now. We've got 342 Highland Lane.
Ian, can you put a overhead on?
If you can just introduce yourself, give us like a brief project overview, and then really we're typically looking for three things: the trees that you're removing, your replacement formula, and your egress and tree protection fencing.
Good evening. My name is Chris Yon. I'm the civil engineer for the project. This is Mark Rayer, one of the owners. And so on this first page, sheet 1, this shows the trees to be removed and the replacement formula. And I'll just quickly page through to tell you where all the three things are. Page 2 is the proposed site plan. It shows the new home, the grading, the utilities, and it shows the proposed trees. And then this is page 3. It basically has the Radnor approved list and the planning details. And then sheet 4 also shows the proposed layout, but this is the erosion sediment control plan, so this is where all the tree protection and fencing is shown.
Okay. I would say if we can take it from the top, can you show us where the trees that are being removed? If you start with that. And just tell us what sheet you're on and we'll follow along.
Okay, I'm on, this is sheet 1. And so the trees to be removed have an X on them. And so we'll start here. There's a 6-inch pine tree. Over here is a 13-inch pine, 17-inch pine, 15-inch pine, 14-inch pine, 18-inch pine, and 15-inch pine. And maybe I'll take a step back. This property, there's two properties here. There's 340 Highland and there's 342 Highland. And an owner owned both of those and sold both of those. This lot has an existing house which is to remain. That's 340 Highland. 342 is vacant, and that's where the new house is going to be built. So there's this leg, property leg that comes up from Highland Avenue, and you can see there's a lot of trees coming up this leg and then making the turn. And so if I could switch to the proposed site plan, we are trying to use a portion of the existing driveway that would be a common driveway, so we can avoid taking down all these trees in this leg. And then we're going to cut over right here. We'll kind of come back into the leg, and so that's why I noted a bunch of trees in a row to be removed. That's where they are, right in that leg. And we did bend up a little sooner before the property turns, and we actually created an easement to do that so we could preserve a little more of these trees. But I think we chose to remove some here and keep some of these. There's a 36-inch poplar and some other trees, cherry, maple, holly, kind of preserve in between the house and the new driveway. You want me to go back to the existing conditions plan and show some more to be removed? Or?
Yes.
Okay. And so we had those pines all in a row. There's also, there's a little walkway here and shed that the people from the existing home used. Those are going to be removed, and then there's a few trees around them, a 6-inch cedar, 12-inch cedar, and a cedar cluster. And so it looks like there's also, here's an 8-inch linden to be removed and a 14-inch dogwood, which are just downslope of the existing house, and that's where there's a potential future pool, We also have to fit in the stormwater system and the on-site sanitary. So I think that covers all the ones to be removed. The only one I don't remember saying is the 10-inch apple. Oh, which is right here.
Yep.
And that
right
tree's
near the
totally,
shed.
that tree's totally dead from my inspection last week.
Okay.
And John, the hemlocks are definitely appropriate to go too,
Yeah,
right?
Beyond repair, yep.
Yeah, I count 11 trees to be removed. Does that sound about right? Here it says 11. Maybe I just, but it looks
We have
like 12.
12 listed.
Okay, good. Okay, and I don't see any heritage trees that you're removing.
That's correct. They are
Okay,
all
good.
between 6 and 18 inches.
Okay. That's always good news. Do you want to take us to your tree replacement formula and show us the new trees that are going in?
Sure, so because they are all between that 16 and 18-inch diameter, we only need to replace one for one. And so we have 12 replacement trees, and basically what we're showing is just a row of arborvitae along the property line to kind of separate the two properties, which right now they don't have any buffer plantings in between because they were used as one. That's what's proposed.
Okay, any questions so far? Okay, then I guess the only other question is the egress, which I assume you're coming through the old driveway to the new driveway, and then the tree protection fencing.
So, you're right, we're gonna use the old driveway, and then right where we turn off for the new is where we'll put in the construction entrance. And then the tree protection fencing is shown as a line with X's through it.
And can you just tell us which sheet you're on now?
Sure, this is sheet 4.
Oh, okay.
And so, we have some on the high side of the driveway here, around these trees. And then it follows up basically all along the right-hand side to protect a few of these large oak trees. And then basically all along the left-hand side to protect from the new stormwater system, the sanitary, the new pool and house coming all the way up the left-hand side, continuing down along the driveway. And then it stops here. We don't have any trees for a little while. Now, the utilities were actually, and they're shown in red, yellow, and blue here. They're going to come down the driveway, and since they can't follow the existing driveway without tearing it up, we're kind of going past this leg to try to get in between some of these larger trees on the eastern side and some of the hemlocks and pines on the left. So this is where the new utilities are going to come down. So there are a few right here that are on this existing lot to be removed, although we're below the threshold for this lot, and I think a lot of these were dead or declining anyway. But that's also some more tree protection fencing on both sides of those utility lines.
The two heritage trees, if I'm reading this correctly, that look close by to your egress is the 43-inch oak and the 43-inch, I'm not sure what that one is.
Yeah, the
One
40
is on the right side of the driveway and one is right at the curve of the driveway.
Right, so the 43-inch oak, I think, right here. So, yeah, we don't show any tree protection fencing for that because there's no real construction close to it. All the construction is, you know, at least over here, all the way on the other side of the
Yep.
driveway. And then, I think this is,
That's because you're coming off the existing driveway, correct?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
It's the existing driveway. So
Yes,
no
there's an
construction.
existing driveway that will remain undisturbed.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the other one, you have tree protection fencing around it. And if you stay on the driveway, it should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So that doesn't cause me any concern. Any comments or questions from anyone else?
It looks pretty adequate.
Okay.
You
Super.
guys built a house in, off Newtown Road, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Motion to approve? Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Approved. Okay, next one, 920 Eagle Road, with no trees being removed. But I know there's a little conversation about that.
When I did the site visit and looked at the plans, I just noticed a few things missing that would have caused delays in this project, I think, and I didn't want that to happen, so I contacted Dan, and we went over some of the protocols that we would need, and Dan has given us revised plans, which are very satisfactory from my point of view, but you should present, Dan, because this is a bit of a complicated site, because the owner, Mr. Tourneau, is insistent on saving all the trees, so he's not removing any trees.
Sounds wonderful.
Massive trees, so I don't
And
want
we
to
love
disturb the trees.
we love hearing that.
Yeah, this is great.
But the problem, the challenge is how do you do the work they're going to do, and not
Protect them.
compromise the health of these trees,
Right.
which they're going to do. And because the last thing you want is to lose your trees.
I don't want to disturb.
So-
That's why we bought the house, frankly. It has to
Okay.
be massive trees.
Yes, beauties.
The
Yeah.
Bur oaks.
personality of the home.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you hear that.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
Yeah, sure, yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we'll
that's
do our
wonderful.
best
Right,
to
so
help
I
you.
rely on you to make sure at the end of this, they're still alive in 3 years.
Ah, I like it.
So go ahead, Dan. if you
Sure.
want.
I'm Dan Burt from Roots Landscape. Nice to meet you guys. So, yeah, the challenge here, as Matt alluded to, pretty much the entire work area is pretty much within the drip line of at least one or two of these heritage trees. A couple steps, and I have this shading on my plan that you guys don't have. I was just playing around with the potential of possibly air spading if it gets compacted too much. That can get kind of messy. The soils there are fairly well drained. It's somewhat sandy. And we'll take some steps to try and mitigate the compaction. We're not going to be running in and out of the site every day. That said, a couple things with the patio. So the cross-hatched area here will be new construction, as will that'll be a dry set bluestone patio. This rectangle here will be a bocce court, stone dust with a gravel base. Now, each of the bases on these two structures will be clean gravel rather than a compacted modified stone, no concrete. It'll allow a little more oxygen exchange with the root systems and not hopefully compact them very much during construction. One benefit, minor albeit, this existing walkway will come out, which is more dense than what we're putting back in, which will be a spaced flagstone, almost like a stepping stone with grass or plantings in between. So we get a little bit more water permeation in those areas. The tree protection fence is tricky, to say the least. I highlighted on each of your plans where, over here, we're not really going to be disturbing anything, but I wanted to protect that just to keep, crew members and whatnot away from it. Out back, there's some existing wood stacks here that Mr. Tourneau has. Otherwise, I probably would have elongated that protection line. The shed is existing. This, I think, is about the largest area that we can encompass to protect the root mass of that tree. Along the back line here, there's some, not the best looking, but they're there and we'd like to keep them. Some Picea aves that, again, they provide privacy from the house that's just on the other side of the fence. We're going to encroach onto that root structure quite a bit with our boulder wall, but we're adding, not excavating there. So, not the best scenario, but not the worst.
So what you mean by that, Dan, is you're not going to cut any roots?
Correct, correct. We will have, obviously, boulders under the drip line of those trees, but we're not going to be digging them in. There's a seepage pit that, if you can see this rectangle here, 2 feet deep, it's approximately 20 feet by 8 feet to capture some of the rain leaders for the house, for the grading side of the permit app. I think that's probably the best place to put it to have the least effect on root system, drip line of any of these trees, and to where it can work with gravity draining to it. So there's other issues at play besides just trying to preserve the most of the drip line. These two trees identified here are under the 6-inch, but I did put them on there just to show that they'll be coming out. 5-inch caliper Kusa and a 4-inch caliper Japanese maple. They would be the only trees removed. So, in addition, so we'll know more, I guess, as we get into the project and see what gets disturbed and as far as where we would like to root fertilize the trees that are impacted by our construction. And again, Mr. and Mrs. Torno definitely want to preserve these trees, so any steps we can take that'll aid that, we will take them. My note about the air spading, again, it would come down to compaction. It's not very practical here because it's such a limited access to the drip line with all the amenities underneath. But I would do it if at the end of the project, we think it would be beneficial. And then I guess the other main point there is that there'll be no concrete slabs poured under any of the drip lines.
And then, just a question, I see I think the 3 large heritage trees, the 39, the 48, and the
yes.
48.
Yep.
But it looks like you have other large trees and they're just not labeled with the size, is that correct?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I misunderstood, Matt. I only labeled those trees that we would be impacting.
Oh, okay, so you just, so you obviously have other large heritage trees.
Oh,
You just
sure.
didn't label them because you
We're
feel
we're
like.
not going to be impacting
near
those at
them
all.
or-
They're in the front lawn and
Oh, okay.
outside our work area.
Okay.
And frankly, that one on the left corner, the beach, is really not going to be impacted, but we, just to be safe, can protect that tree as well.
What kind of equipment are you using, just mini X and stuff?
Yeah, and
Is that a big back
a Mini X track and a tracked skid steer.
Okay.
Tracks being better to try and disperse the weight a little bit.
And you told me on the phone, Dan, you were walking some of the material in,
Yeah, oh, yes, yeah.
so.
And we'll be working from the driveway. So, I mean, this is more with the engineer's side, but as far as wheel wash and whatnot, it'll be from the drive. There won't be machines coming and going from the site or accessing or, all over those root systems every day. Because of the tightness of the site, a lot of the work will be done by hand.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think from our standpoint, you're only removing 2 trees, which are well underneath the 6 trees. None of them are heritage trees. So I think from that standpoint, it's relatively easy to prove. Is there any advice that we want to lend Dan and Mr. Torno regarding preserving these heritage trees?
There's a lot of the back is the most beautiful in the property.
The 48-inch, right?
Yeah, right up
In
against the house.
The back
Yeah.
corner there. Okay. This guy right here.
I didn't see it, and I'm not, but maybe if you needed plywood or mats or something.
Oh, for sure.
Might help
Absolutely.
out a little bit.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. We'll do that anyway.
For the
Yeah.
root compaction?
Right,
To prevent that?
exactly, yeah.
It looks good.
Yeah. Any questions, any comments?
It's encouraging to get an applicant who wants to save trees.
Yeah, yeah. No, we like this, so thank you very much. I don't
Sure.
think there's anything to approve, but we wish you the best of luck.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so folks, we go down now to number 6. Oh, sorry, number 7, actually, 2019 goal update. So, let me just catch up. So that's basically where we're going to talk about the fall planting and the 2020 budget proposal. Okay. So,
Eileen?
Ginny, I'll kick it off to you. If you want to give us an update on the fall planting, where we are, what's needed.
Eileen, can you
Yes.
move your mic closer to you?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, we just, you all have your list of registrants, and we ended up with, I believe, I just got the latest one when I walked in the door, but the one I got this afternoon was 46 trees. 26 of them are flowering, and 20 of them were shade trees. And Leah just closed out the registration today. I did ask her if it was possible to capture any additional folks that were trying to sign up after the registration was closed, and she said they're not capable of doing that with the existing software that they have. But if anybody contacted her directly, she would certainly capture the names for us. So the long and short of it is I think we had a really successful turnout. We closed it out in roughly 2 weeks and got, I'm not sure what happened with this one woman who felt that she didn't get her tree in the spring. Do you know anything about that, John? Yeah,
Everybody got their tree. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not really sure what happened there.
Yeah, so anyway, she's getting it now, and we did end up putting 2 ads in the Suburban and all the Delaware County papers that Media Times covers. So we had good coverage in the, I don't know if anybody gets the Suburban and you saw the ads, but they are good placement and good size. So I would like to try and ask, maybe for the spring planning, try and ask folks, where did you hear about this, just to see how effective our advertising is, and/or the flyers that were put around the community. I put flyers in a lot of public places, you know, the Wawa, the library, the farmer's market, a couple of Starbucks, they have bulletin boards, so, and there's that central bulletin board right there next to the Griffin Cafe. So I'm not sure if it's the flyers people are seeing or if it's the ads, right, but it would just be good to know. So that would be my one feedback maybe for the spring.
On that note, Ginny, the other thing I think we could do is make use of the email addresses we have from previous folks that have received trees. So for instance, a friend of mine that lives in a different neighborhood, because he was so happy with his tree, he actually printed out flyers, went door to door to his neighbors to say, hey, would you like a tree too?
How nice of them.
Yeah, definitely. And so I thought we could do that too, since we have the email
Yeah.
addresses.
We're
And see if
starting to
folks
build,
can help
yeah.
spread the word.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Good. So I think, I guess the next step here is, John, you had sent out a memorandum that they all got as a follow-up on what's next steps. So I guess our next steps is to sort of figure out who's going to do the stakes and who's going to meet with who and divvy up this list a little bit.
Yeah, and Ginny, before we go there, I just want to do a double check. How many small versus large trees did you say there are?
There were 26 flowering and 20 shade.
Okay, and John, maybe you can answer this. The bid that we put out, request for bid was 23 and 23. I'm looking through the schedule, that's where my eyes are right now. And we had down to award the bid by October 9th. So has that already been awarded for 23 and 23, or can we change the quantity?
I don't believe the PO was cut yet, so we might be able to change that.
Okay.
If you could you send a quick email to Norsini and just copy me on it? That'd be a question he can definitely answer. But I think we can change. I think we just gave him like a preliminary structure to deal with.
Okay.
So I know it was approved, but the PO itself has not gone through yet, I don't believe.
Oh, really, Trish? The PO itself has not?
Well,
I mean, but,
So it's in, but I haven't gotten confirmation yet.
okay.
So, but it's been approved by
Right,
the
I got that email from, Mr.
So
White.
it's all set.
Yeah,
It's just a matter of getting that
okay.
purchase order.
I guess we should also mention that I think it was like maybe 8 folks that had signed up, but they were either on private lanes or they were in public streets. And we did have, I don't know if all of you folks were on those emails, but we did have a conversation via email with Mr. Norsini and he confirmed that we cannot plant on private lanes and/or public streets. So we're going to refund the money to those folks.
So you and I talked about the other day, Eileen, on the phone,
Yeah.
private.
In some ways, I wonder a little bit why.
As well as state roads.
Most of the private are homeowners associations, so they have to obviously assume responsibility. It comes out of their budget, so they don't want to obviously obtain more trees than they have to.
Right. But where it's not a homeowners association and they have their own requirements to go through. But if it's private or state, my understanding is we do the maintenance on the state roads. Private, the resident would do the maintenance, just like most of our roads now. I'm kind of thinking a tree is a tree. Doesn't it help us with the tree canopy regardless of where it is?
We don't do maintenance on the state roads.
That's
Right,
what
that was-
Steve had mentioned to me.
I thought that was his
about once.
concern, that we don't.
We're not even counting them on the state roads. That's not part of our survey work.
Yeah. I don't think, yeah. Okay, we can check back with Steve, because I thought he had told me that we end up doing the maintenance there. They don't maintain their trees. The state doesn't maintain the trees on the state road.
That's
I
correct.
mean,
Yeah.
one way out of this would be to put them in the parks.
We
And-
could, yeah, no, well, this time we're covered, so I think that there's no question. But just thinking of the future, is there, like, would it be any value to allowing folks on state roads or private roads to have trees? And I see what you're saying, Matt. The alternative is, hey, if a tree is a tree, just put it in a park, and that will still get us the same canopy.
I mean,
Okay.
by the end of the day, we're going to lose every ash in the parks, and so the parks are going to look pretty bare.
Okay.
It's just, someone might like to do that. They might like to say, hey, I donated a tree to Puerto Rocio Park or something.
Yeah,
And real quick, I think 46 trees, I think what was accepted, we gave a combination of 9 different trees at the last meeting or one of the meetings. So they might not all be flowering, there might not be enough flowering. So we might have to change that, I believe.
Meaning they could just be small trees, but not necessarily flowering trees?
Or they could be large. I don't have the list in front of me, but I remember seeing the actual,
That's okay. I have the list, and we did 23 small, 23 large, and then we had different types of small and large specified to give us a lot of leeway as to what the nursery had and what was healthy.
yeah, I'm going off of what the board approved. There was like 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, I think, something like that.
Mhm.
So I think we need to check to see what that is, just to make sure people that there is enough flowering trees.
Right,
for
and
those-
that's, yeah, and that's where we're gonna, I'll reach out to Steve Norsini
Yeah.
and just see, hey, we know we have 46 trees, can we just change the distribution to match up what folks signed up for?
right,
And, yeah,
Perfect,
so,
yeah.
so hopefully we can.
yeah.
And if not, we'll figure out how to redistribute. So, okay. Okay. Ginny, you now wanted to talk about the stakes and the list.
Can I
did.
just interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
Ginny, do you want to work with me to send out an email to All Seasons to let them know how many flowering, how many shade we're going to want? I just looked. We do have the purchase order number, and
Okay.
I actually gave it to them this morning when I talked to the girl this morning. So I was just talking to John. The price isn't going to vary. It's just so that before they order the trees, we'll need to get out an email to them saying, we would like to have X amount of shade, X amount of flowering. And I'll put something together, send it to you. You can either elaborate or say, yeah, it's okay, and then I can
Okay.
send it to them. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
by Friday.
Well,
Okay,
Because he's going to want to secure those trees, I'm sure.
okay,
so I will get that out tomorrow because I will not be in the office on Friday.
okay,
Okay?
yep, sounds good. So that will take care of trying to jive to James's point, then, the number of flowering trees to shade. So the next step is, yes, getting the, do we have the stakes and everything, Trish?
Yes, I have them right here.
Okay. So when we did this in the spring, we sort of tried to group these in like neighborhoods, so, and we had teams of 2 people. I don't know if we still need teams of 2.
I think so, because I think what's going to be different this time is we're going to give the stake to the resident. The resident is going to put the stake where they want it.
Right.
And then from there, Public Works will drive by and say, yep, that looks good, no issue, or yes, there's an issue and we need to move it X amount of feet, let's say to the left. But this way, the resident gets a say in it. So I think all we have to do is drop it off with the instructions.
Yeah, okay. So we would probably want to look at this list and still try to figure out geographically, is everybody available to deliver steaks?
Sure.
Okay. When do we want to try and get these delivered by?
Per our schedule, just if we want to stay on schedule, we said that we would deliver these by the 18th. I think today's the 15th.
Today's the 16th.
Oh, so by Friday. So if we do it by this weekend, I think we're
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
And then the idea is then Public Works, that the registrants that will put the stake in the ground by the 25th. That gives them to the following Friday. And then Public Works checks all the locations by the 31st. So the sooner we can give them to the residents, the sooner Public Works can do what they need to do.
Okay. So what do we have? We have 6 of us, and we have 46 locations.
Does it could we do this maybe just after the meeting? We spend a few minutes, we huddle together, and we just kind of, call out which ones are in our neighborhoods and we can take and just do it that way?
Sure, that makes sense, rather than taking up meeting time.
I think so.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, super.
What size are the stakes? Are they small enough to fit in mailboxes, or do we need to put them on front?
Trish can, yeah.
Oh,
they're
perfect.
like
Mailbox.
flags.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
So if the resident's there, we can say hi, what we're doing. Otherwise, throw it in the mailbox.
Yep. Yeah, sounds good.
And we're giving, they got emailed this already, is that right, John, your memo?
No, we did not email anybody. We have copies that will go with the flags.
That's what I was thinking, so everybody, does everybody have this memo from John and the emails? Okay.
No, I think Trish has 50 copies of them. So after
Oh,
the
you do?
meeting, we'll
Okay.
get flags, copies, and do a divide and conquer on the list.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, good. Anything else on the fall planting? Sounds pretty good. Okay,
Yeah,
super.
Great job, everyone.
Eileen, if we can, we have to make a decision tonight based on our conversation with PICO.
Thank
So
you.
PICO is having their 100th year anniversary on Clyde Roads Pipeline. And Michelle from PICO was nice enough to donate $1,000 towards Shade Tree Commission for new trees. The trees are going to be planted by Public Works. So that money is just going to go to buying trees. She said, let us know what you want, where you're buying them. She'll call in, give the credit card number, and we're good to go, and we're going to plant them, and they're going to have a little celebration. The area that they originally wanted to plant them at will not accept any trees, just because of the canopy that's already existing. So I said, hey, as a group, let's pick a spot tonight where we think we need them, and I'll get back to Michelle ASAP and Steve McNeilis.
That's great.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So I'll put out one proposal, because John gave me a heads up about this. So I was thinking all along, if we don't have enough residents to take trees, where would we want to put them from an overflow perspective? So one suggestion is Stratford Park. It's on Upper Gulf Road, and it doesn't have any trees right along the street, and it doesn't have any overhead wires, and yet it's a busy street. So I was thinking it would be a park, it would still be street lined, and a lot of people potentially could benefit because it's a busy road. So, but I'm open to other suggestions.
How many trees will it be for $1,000 then?
Depending on where they call, I'm hoping they're going to call Sam Brown's, and then I'll bend the ear a little bit as well. I would say anywhere from 4 to 5 trees.
Okay.
Hoping. 4 to 5 trees, max 5, I would think.
I sort of like Eileen's suggestion, because in the survey work, that's a pretty tough empty area, and anything will help the vibe up there.
Okay. Other suggestions?
Sounds like a great idea. I'm looking at the satellite view, and they could use some trees.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you guys have that view. Okay, so motion to approve for Stratford Park on Upper Gulf Road. Okay, approved. We're good. Okay, John, thanks for reminding me of that. Okay. So anything else on the fall planting before we leave this topic? Okay, super, very nice job.
Thanks for everybody's help. I didn't do it alone, that's for sure.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Once the trees get put in, will there be an information packet, or can we put together, I can help, or an information packet that would tell them what tree they got, how to take care of it, about the gator, about the stakes,
I
about
think,
the
John,
mulching?
John, I think you put that together, right? Last time they.
Spring,
Mhm.
so I just put together the memo for location.
Mhm.
I have the one from the spring, so I can forward that. But fortunately, and even better circumstances is All Seasons, who did the spring planting,
Yep.
has designed a little door hanger that talks about their little tree. They write the name of it, and they also talk about how to care for it,
Oh, good.
part of their process.
Oh, that's
Great.
wonderful.
So,
Mhm.
I just want to make another comment, just backing into when there were some people who wanted to get their trees on private ways or in, on a state road or whatever. When you suggest maybe having them donated to a park, I think that's great, but you got to find out from Parks and Rec if they will take them, right? Just because of extra stuff, work.
So Claire, is there like, can you say yes to that tonight now, or is there something else you need to do?
Well, I think it's actually through the township, not through Parks and Rec Board, but the.
Parks of Public Works.
you- you know,
Tammy,
and-
Public
So
Works.
that, it's not like we approve.
It's not a given.
What trees go in parks, but that, you know, where the township sees.
The need, yeah.
So, I mean, for Stratford Park, since we see the
I
need,
don't either. I'm just saying it's a little bit more
and
organization.
Public Works will be doing the planting, yeah, I think we'll be okay. We'll let Tammy come back to us if she has any
Yeah.
issue and she can't put the trees
Yeah.
there, then she can let us know and we'll find a second home for them.
Okay.
I would suggest actually just putting together from our end at Shade Tree is putting together the list and saying, these are the trees we have available, this is where we'd like them to go. And, yeah, ask for forgiveness rather than, yeah.
Well, I
Rather
think that
than
will be in.
permission.
Than permission.
Yeah, but I think that will be in the meeting minutes. I mean, I think that's what we're doing. John's going to talk to Michelle at Pico, and with a $1,000 check, they will buy 4 to 5 trees, and we'll specify that we want them in Stratford Park along the street on Old Gulf Road, and Public Works will do the planting. So if they encounter any issue, I'm sure they'll let us know.
there's going to be some sort of, I guess, a little party for the 100th year at, I guess,
Yes.
Stratford Park, because that's where they're planting the trees. So I'll try to find out when that date is. I'll email everybody in case you want to
Okay.
be there. So
That's a nice
rub
idea.
elbows.
So,
Can you include Tammy on that? Thanks. I mean, just for information, because sometimes she doesn't even know what's happening. So we're trying to get the left and the right hand of. Thank you.
and my comment was more for the individuals who might, if they can't have it on their road or whatever, if they wanted to donate,
Oh, I see.
that's the piece that I was saying. It's not just a given.
Oh, I see.
The Stratford one, I totally get. That's
Right.
a pretty much given. You've been talking about it. But anything else, just so if you do in the future for spring, if
I
there
don't
are
know the
people
date
who
is
want
for
to,
the-
and you
the,
add that
Stratford-
in,
Yeah, he was going to email.
you might
I
want
don't
to
know.
talk to Public Works first.
Okay.
Forgive me if I missed it. Do we have a date for that, Stratford? No. Okay.
Will there be food there? Really, Jake? Mom's watching.
Okay, with that, we'll go to the budget. Let's see. Okay, so so it's that time of year again, guys, where we need to propose a budget for 2020. So one thing that's different about this year versus last year, just to ground everybody, last year what we really did, it was the first time we did an analysis to even come up with a budget. So it was more of a 5-year strategic plan looking at what has been the historical either tree loss or tree gain, and with that in mind, what would we propose? Okay, so this year, what's different is, providing we agree, it's more so just looking at 1 year, not a 5-year strategic plan, and what do we propose for 2020? Okay, so I'll just step through each slide at a time. I think you guys all have copies of this. Okay, so the first slide basically just grounds, because this will go to the BOC for approval, hey, this is our overall vision. Okay, why are we even talking about trees? And one of the things I think that I would like to add on here is that you have the WBA actually asking for trees. So it also helps drive potentially revenue, because you have businesses asking, hey, we want tree-lined streets. So I think we'll add that on to the list. Okay. And everything else you guys are well aware of. Okay. Then if you go to the next slide, slide 3, I think it was just to ground them and look at how much that we've actually accomplished. And I changed this slightly from what I sent out to really say, hey, together with the township. So it's really been the BOC, the township, and ourselves. And overall, we've planted 10 times as many trees as we have in prior years. So that's great. So over 300 trees. It'll be 312, I think, to be exact. And so the spring tree planting, we did that for the first time. That we've never done that before. We gave away small canopy trees, so now people who have overhead wires can actually regreen the area. They didn't have that option before. Matt, you've done a great job. I didn't know if the street tree survey was actually completed, or
It's
what
not.
percentage?
I would
Should I
you
say
know, it's hard-
90?
It's hard. There are pockets everywhere that we haven't reached, but we're around 3,400 trees.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm thinking, if I had to guess, and I'm guessing at 80%, 85%.
Okay.
John and I agree that we should keep the survey going until the second week in November,
Mhm.
because the leaves are still on the trees. And then at that point, I'll be able to give everybody real numbers.
Okay.
And then we can start the analysis portion.
Okay. That's great. And then that will be the next agenda topic I want to go to anyhow, where Matt can give us more of an update on that. Okay. Donations increased. Laura, I mentioned your donation from Radnor Conservancy of $6,000, so thank you very much. Yeah, it's being put to good use. We're spending it all. Yeah. We've never gotten that amount other than from Chanticleer, so we're delighted. So no, that's wonderful. And Chanticleer, I just have to check with Bill White to find out. Normally, they give in the neighborhood of 15,000, and I'm just not sure if that was the amount that came in. But they also are very good.
Does somebody talk to them and ask them, or how does that work?
I met with Bill Thomas last year, but truthfully, I think they just typically give each year. So we're quite lucky. It's not a lot of effort on our part. So I think we just need to put it to good use.
Yeah, just because there's certain times where I think that they cut off.
That is true. There are certain years, so I can look back at the budget. I think there were 2 years where there wasn't a donation. Yeah.
But their budget gets filled up and then
Yeah.
it stops, and maybe you get them early, or
Right.
who knows what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll find out from Bill. Okay. And last one. One of our goals was to help educate residents, like be a better partner to the residents and businesses here. And we did that via the communications. And James, you really took that on with, getting us articles and information about the emerald ash borer and the spotted lanternfly that we posted on our website. So.
John did that.
Oh, sorry, John. Thank you.
And John did follow up with everything on the website too. So
Oh, okay.
I was a little bit late. John is always trying to beat me. So.
Okay.
That's all right.
Just let him go. Let him go, James.
I hear.
Okay, these are the important things. Okay, moving along to slide 4. Okay, so this is where those 312 trees went. Okay? This year probably was an exceptional year because we had that huge Cabrini donation, right? Basically of 100 trees. That's not going to happen every year, but that was great to have. And of course, we had the big WBA project that the township funded, which was 60 trees. And I don't know if you've noticed, they've been going in this week.
Yes, they look great.
Yeah?
One other thing to check
Yeah.
too with donations, there was a bank on Lancaster Avenue that said they were donating trees to us. But I'm not sure what happened with that, because I haven't seen it anywhere.
That project was contingent on that donation. because they couldn't put the trees on that property.
But they were supposed to go in that neighborhood, am I correct?
They were, yeah.
And James, you were going to pick out locations with them?
I think at first they were going to just donate the money, it was like $4,500, the shade tree fund. And then something else came in.
Is that First Resource, Peg?
I think so, yeah.
That just opened yesterday, grand opening, so where would we find that information if they,
It's just something to check into. They might be holding a check for us, you know?
Well, it came before
think-
planning as well. I mean, planning was okayed that project based on that, was one of the aspects of what they had to do. So, yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. So Trish,
They seem like a good guy, so I'm sure they would want to
yeah,
do it.
because I think by memory, they were taking away trees, and I think some of the residents weren't happy, so we said, once we get the replacement trees, we would look to put them in their neighborhood. And I think, James, you were going to look at locations in their neighborhood. Does that ring a bell?
We're going to give, just donate money.
Well, either way, when we buy the trees, we would look to put them in that neighborhood where the trees were taken from. Okay, so Trish, if you can just, got it, thank you.
there's not much neighborhood there, it's just farm
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
so, you know, it's pretty commercial. There's not, there's no
Are there
place.
houses behind it?
There's one street of houses.
Yeah, I think that's the,
We can
that would
find
be the
it.
neighborhood.
We'll find somewhere, if it's not there, somewhere else.
Yeah, but we'll
Um,
start with there.
Yeah. Right next to Sherwin Williams, right? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we'll let Trish follow up on that and secure the funds, and then if that happens, then we can either, we can investigate whether we try to procure trees and plant them this fall, or if we plant them in the spring. Okay,
And just check if they might have planted trees as well. That's why that.
okay.
It's actually Kimberly Donch's neighborhood, so.
Yeah. Okay, so
I think
slide,
Before, and it was declined, the tree removals by the previous owners. So, really think they, you know, since it was agreed upon, something should be done.
yep. Okay, good.
Is there some check and balance in place? Because if James hadn't brought that up, would that have slipped through the cracks, or is there some check and balance on when people are,
I think the township probably.
oh, you have a check and balance system?
Wow, yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, so if we go to slide 5, so this really, now we're going to the world of, okay, the slide before is how many trees we planted, now we're on the world of how many trees did we remove. Okay, so we planted, let's say, in the neighborhood of 300, we removed in the neighborhood of 500. Okay, believe it or not, this is actually good news, because when I looked back at our strategic plan, which was based on the data that Matt had from the survey, it was 50% done at the time, and we just doubled it, thinking, okay, once we get 100% done, if it looks the same, these are the numbers that we have. The big ask was actually in the number of hazardous trees and severe decline trees that needed to be removed. We estimated it would be in the neighborhood of like $800,000 to take down the number of trees. So that really was the burning platform, I would say, so that we keep residents safe and so we keep residents, the lights on. That's what we were talking about last year, so that we don't lose power and that we remove these trees. So I gotta say, I think Public Works did a great job, because you can see over the last couple of years, they have increased in taking down the number of hazardous trees. So there's still more to take down, but I think this is a positive sign. So what you're looking at here is the blue bar is that removed by Public Works. The yellow bar are hazardous trees removed by residents. Also positive that the hazardous trees are coming down. So combined, that's where the 500 comes in. The next set are all the healthy trees. So the green bar shows, hey, these are the number of trees that came before us, meaning so it would be a resident or a business removing 6 or more, because if they only remove 5, they don't have to come before us. So that's what the green bar represents. The orange bar is just an assumption. We just assume that 120 healthy trees are removed per year that we don't see and have no line of sight. So It's a rough number. And that's, so that's basically where we get 500. And then by the end of the year, if we stay on course, it'll probably be about 700. Okay.
And that would, if there's an error in that number, it's probably it's more trees are being removed by residents that we don't know about than we think.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I know that has to be the case. I mean, just in wandering around.
Yeah, yeah, and we could change that assumption if we feel that it's higher, we could change that. Because it's really assuming about 10 per month. What do you think it should be?
I'd say at least 3 a day.
So 90, so you would almost multiply this by 10.
What, in a month?
Yeah, if you're saying 3 a day, so that's like about 90. If I just use 100, that'd be like 1,200.
Yes.
That's not looking,
Yeah, but,
but there's no way to tell.
yeah.
And a lot of times people come before us and they've already taken the trees. I mean,
But even, at least if they come before us, at least we have it on record that they're removing the trees. At least those we capture. But all the onesie, twosies coming down, we just don't
We're
have,
not gonna know.
no, we
Plus, we
don't.
don't know how much will be planted either. There's
Yeah.
tons being planted that aren't being taken into consideration either.
Right.
Correct.
I would say any landscape job, you're getting 5 to 10 trees
Yeah,
per house, so
yeah.
there's
Yeah,
a lot.
and that's part that isn't in this scope. So for instance, even the trees that Radnor Conservancy gives away, close to 400 trees this year. Next year, I know you set your goal at 500 trees. That isn't shown in here as going in. So what the rest of the budget really concentrates on is what's within Radnor Township's control, which is the right-of-way, not people's backyards. So that's how we kind of limit the scope to focus on what we can control. Okay, so then if we go to the next slide, slide 6, where you got the pretty blue and orange bars, it basically shows you historically how many trees have been coming out, how many trees are going in, and at least you see the big jump in 2019 in both directions, which is good. More hazardous trees coming out, that's great. We knew they existed, they need to go, and we know it's expensive, glad to see them coming out. And then, of course, the big surge in planting. And then the rest of the years, 2020 and going forward, I assumed with Matt's survey and the good work that Public Works is doing is that we still take out another bolus of hazardous trees in 2020. And then once we get all the existing hazardous trees taken down, then it starts to decrease. And then planting, this is really just an assumption. If we stay the course and we just do a spring and fall planting, I just made that as a straight assumption, this is what it would look like. So basically 140 trees going in every year. We can decide, yep, that's okay, or we can decide, no, we want to aim higher. But that, I'd say that's really what the budget is built around, is that assumption. So something to think about. So what's the impact? Let's say we do 140 trees a year. This is basically the impact. The blue shows you year on year, are you gaining trees? Just a number, it doesn't really speak to canopy. Are you gaining trees in number, or are you losing trees? So in 2020, and like we kind of break even, 2021, we actually start to increase. Okay. And then, so that's why you see the trend. The yellow line is the cumulative line where it actually starts going up at this point, because we're finally not losing as many trees as we are gaining. We're finally on the positive side. And then if you translate this into money, always good to know, you go to slide 9, and I think Bill White will cringe when he sees this, because as a finance person, there's no room for a green check mark in some type of finance spreadsheet, but hey, this is what you get. So what I did is I took the budget that we proposed last year in 2019, and it was a holistic look for the township. It wasn't just, hey, this is what STC needs. It's like, this is what needs to go to Public Works and everyone else. So since we have no line of sight, let's say, into what went to Public Works, that's where I was qualitative with green or yellow check marks. So I'll go right down to the expenses. So the fall tree planting, let's see, we have 2 big tree plantings, so let me see if I can find them. We have the fall tree planting, and we have the spring. And overall, if you combine those two together, plus the trees that the township planted, we're in the neighborhood of 32,000 plus 50,000. So around 82,000. We know the street tree planting, the Wayne Business District, we know the township took care of that. I don't know how much that was, but that got a green check mark. Tree removal by Public Works, what's shown there in red, I don't know how much that cost, but we know Steve McNeilis and that crew did a good job. They probably didn't spend nearly that amount of money because not that many trees came out, but they made a dent. And that's where you see the yellow check mark. We didn't get rid of all the hazardous trees, but we got rid of a lot of them. So I am estimating that the shade tree only expenses for this year are about $102,000. Out of an overall, this is where we ask them, hey, I think you need to invest $1 million, basically, in trees. The bulk of it is actually going to be removing trees, not planting trees. Okay. So now we go to 2020. And here I just limited it to us, the Shade Tree Committee. So these would be the revenue, the beginning fund balance. This is per Bill White, who is our controller, our finance person. What the budget states is that we should have about 61,000. So we'll find out if we're on budget or not, but that should be about what the starting balance is. The revenues coming in, interest I just rolled over $1,000 because I think that's what was predicted for prior years. Donations, I put Chanticleer at 18,000. We, of course, would have to check with Bill Thomas. Radnor Conservancy, Laura, we'd obviously have to check with you and you folks to see, like, would you want to give another donation in 2020? You don't need to answer now, just something to think about, and if so, what would that be? And then typically our general transfer in from the township is 25,000. So that would give us total revenues of 50,000. And then this is really the part I think we control, is what is our ask? And so I put our ask as having 2 plantings, the spring and the fall. And I basically used the budget numbers from 2018, and I put a 3% markup just for like cost of living type increase. So that's where you get 39,000 and 43,000. Communication, we spent, I think, about 2,000 this year, so I took a guess about 5,000. And that's where, you know, Seth and Ginny really are the experts there to say, does that look reasonable or too low, too high?
I think that's probably more than we need. I mean, if you figure 1,000 per planting, where were you thinking maybe we would spend another 3?
I think,
If we do the off schedule of the spring and fall planting, you know, any other communications that we can think of that are tree related, canopy related, and if there's any infestation or disease issues that we need to communicate.
yeah.
And just baselining all of our materials. I know, you know, we all went through the forms and applications that we have on the website, but just, you know, taking a look at those and if we want to standardize and make
Right.
all of them pretty kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like, if we wanted to create any new graphics, anything like that would take funds. If we wanted to, once Matt gets done with the survey, if we want to notify residents that they have a hazardous tree and, you know, proactively, hey, these are the contractors you could contact, they're licensed to take them down, you know, we could do that. It would probably have to be by mail. If we wanted to do any more advertising around the spring or fall plantings, like anything where we create signs, you know, and maybe put them near some of the trees along the busy streets where we have planted them, to get people to say, hey, if you
Right.
want a tree like this, look, you know, drive kind of traffic to our website,
Yeah.
anything like that.
And we could always revisit it 6 months from now if we decide, you know, we could just reroute.
Yeah. So those are just kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, looks good.
Arborist, we share the expense for Tom amongst many, I think, functions, so I just put 20,000 in there as to that would be our share. I think that's what there was there before. And so that basically gives us a total of 107,000 with 4,000 left in our cash balance. And tree-wise, this would be, I guess, actually about the neighborhood 150 trees, 140 to 150 trees.
There is no line item for
Maintenance?
the money that people pay.
Oh, yep.
So if there was 70 in the spring, 46 or 40, whatever it is, there should be like another 4,000?
There
Although
is
some went
actu-
to parks.
Yeah, there is a line item, fees and
There is.
fines. We just have zero in there because in
Oh, yeah.
previous years, I don't think there's been much collected. Other than this year with Cabrini, where the donation is in trees. But we could show an amount there if we think, hey, we're likely to get in a certain amount.
I mean, I don't know who knows where the money went.
Oh, the $35, yeah, we could account for that in here, because you're right, I don't show that in the revenue. Is that what you mean, James? Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. No, I can add that in. I was thinking of the fine, like for the $4,500 for the bank that we just talked about.
No. I'm talking about
Yep.
what people pay
Yeah,
for
sure.
the tree.
Yep.
If we just roll that back into.
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
If we can find.
35 times 46 is 1610
Okay, super.
We had 70
for the spring.
but you can't go up 70 because the township took a bunch for the parks. So you have to find out how many actually went to residents. Because the township would
Right.
be paying 35.
Right.
That's
If
true.
50 went 30.
Yeah, another 1750, so yeah, around $3,000 or so.
Okay, I could just put in $3,000 and just assume that's about, okay, super.
Has to be worried about that.
Okay, good. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
And this is a change from prior years in regards to not holding a large cash balance,
That's
correct?
exactly right, Seth. Yeah, normally we roll that over and don't spend the money.
Good.
I would rather spend it.
Right, we decided why
Yeah.
carry a balance.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
You know, one thought while we're still on that topic, a bit of feedback on the flyer that we used. I know Seth and I went back and forth about trying to come up with a more friendly website name, because that is a hard website for people to remember. And if you just happen to see, you don't have a pen on you, you really have to write that down. You're not
Yeah.
gonna remember it. So, I don't know, Trish, is there a way we can come up with a more friendly website name for that planting? I think you had told me it costs money to do that, to get the technology or something was the problem with getting a more friendly website name?
I can
No.
help with that.
That is up to, like, Melissa. I think Melissa was working with Leah on that, and I have nothing to do with the website. Ian may be able to help facilitate something, but
Yeah.
that's totally out of my realm.
I can assist with that. I just looked up radnortrees.com is available. It's $15 a year for a domain, and we could forward that right on
But-
to the.
but I don't-
We can
I-
go through the township, of course, yeah.
Yeah, the problem is the township has, their own website, their
Right.
own way of doing things, so I can't answer
Okay.
how to do it, if we can do it, but we can definitely look into that.
Okay,
We
thanks,
can,
Seth.
I'll help you, Jenny. We can knock
Okay,
it
that would
out.
be great. That's a perfect name
Yeah.
if we can get that.
Or, yeah, I'm sure anything Radnor with trees is available, so. Our options are open.
And then the last slide, is just recognition of who we are, slide 11, and just thank you. Maybe this would be more so a discussion area with the BOC. Hey, how do you want to partner in 2020? Because this year wasn't the greatest year in regards to partnering, and so at least if we can set expectations going forward, what is everybody's roles and responsibilities in 2020, then I think it will be easier to operate. So I think we could just tee up that discussion at the end.
I know, first of all, amazing, Eileen, thank
Yeah,
you so
good
much
job.
for putting this
Thanks.
in very understanding our goals, and, so much has happened in your tenure, really appreciate it. One thing that's not included in here, and I know that is an ask of the BOC
Yes.
for maintenance dollars.
Yes.
So I know that's coming later, I just
Yeah.
wanted to bring it up now.
It's so funny, Claire, and I should call that clearly out. That's a really good point. I realized after I did this that, maintenance isn't in there. I know it's a meeting that's coming up, that we're looking at October 30th with the backup date of November 14th. I do think it will be a rather large bill. And then it will be up to the township. Do you want to fund this, and where do you want to put the money? Like, would it go under Public Works, who currently removes the hazardous trees? Would they then start doing maintenance like pruning? I'm guessing that may be the case versus it coming into our fund, the Shade Tree Committee, and us managing the maintenance. So,
The Public Works actually isn't doing the removals, it's contracted to another company. I think what they're trying to do is see whether they should get
right. But
a
it,
crew to do it.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. It comes out of their budget, though. Like it
Okay,
doesn't, the
gotcha.
dollars don't show, it, and they negotiate that.
Right.
They work that out.
Maybe we want to just include it as a footnote, as something that we're working towards. We're not exactly sure. I mean, I know the budget tends to be fluid in the township
Yeah.
as is. So oftentimes the BOC is voting on different things and not spending that money, but we should at least keep it in our footnote as something we want to see answered.
Yep.
Is that clear? Was that?
Yeah, I
make
think
sense?
what I could do is I could even add a slide, something about like 2020 looking forward.
Yep, great.
2020, like what,
Or,
What
you know
should
how
we be
sometimes
thinking about?
sometimes you put action plans in red, if,
Yeah.
wherever we can put that in our,
yeah. Or I can just even call it clearly out, hey, not included is tree maintenance. So you know it's not here, it's got to go somewhere. It's not us. But we'll help. Okay, no. Yeah, not. Yes, maybe big print. Okay, that's good. So guys, that's great. I will add in the $35, basically $3,000 as a line item under revenue coming in, and I'll make a call out that maintenance is not included. And I can cover that in the discussion. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, anything else? Okay, I think that looks good. Next agenda topic. Matt, we'll go to you if you want to give us an update on the survey.
Yeah, so we have about, by my rough count, 3,400 trees surveyed. This year, I'm finding, this is anecdotal because I haven't done an analysis of the data, but it seems to Jane and I that there are less hazardous trees in some of the areas that we're surveying this year than the first year, because I think we're doing smaller neighborhoods now. We did a lot of the middle of Wayne initially, and we did some state roads initially because we didn't understand that we didn't need to do the state roads. But anyway, they're done anyway, so it's all data is valuable in my opinion. And so there are a lot of issues on state roads that don't exist in neighborhoods. But what we're seeing clearly is that in newer developments, there are not as many overhead wire issues because there aren't any overhead wires. There also aren't very many street trees because people plant the trees back 10 feet, 15 feet off the right of way. I still have not received exact right of way information about every street that we're surveying because it doesn't really exist. I mean, Radnor can go out and measure a street and say this is where the right of way is, but they don't. As far as I can see, there's nothing recorded that says these on West Wayne Avenue, this is the right of way. So we're erring on the side of counting trees that are in our view, or on the street. So if the roots are actually touching the curb, we count that as a tree in the right of way, or anything under wires, power lines, and cables, we obviously count. So I think we have, I don't know if I said this before, but there are the little pockets. I gave everyone a map with the yellow highlights, but there are little pockets where we just have to go and finish the work there. There are some horrible roads. We did Badoff Road, which we did it on a Sunday morning, but it was like, there's, on one little stretch there's 300 street trees, and they're one next to the other. They're like little saplings, and but they're street trees, and they're going to be an issue at some point. So it's that type of thing is slowing us up a little bit. But no, I'm encouraged that by the middle of November, we'll be certainly complete enough to start the analysis stage. And then as that will require getting all the data to urban forest metrics folks and John and us working together to figure out what kind of mapping we want, we can pull this thing in a million different ways. So I think we need to prioritize what kind of mapping or analysis will be most beneficial to people like Steve McNellis. The other thing is we need to go back and resurvey, because Radnor is doing such a good job taking trees out that we have survey information and data on trees that don't exist anymore. And I see it every time we're out. Didn't we survey that stump at once? Yeah, you know. So that's something we just have to update as we go. We have a second urban forest metrics app that Bob Zinkowski purchased for us that we have not used. We've had this for months. And the reason we haven't used it is we don't have another team. So that would be a good thing if we can put our heads together, or if someone can think about if there's anyone out there that someone might know who would. I'm the unskilled person. I basically measure. So I have all the measuring tools, and that's what I do, and I map them. I map what I find, but Jane is the arborist she understands a lot about trees. She understands a lot about species and condition, and so you need a recorder, and you need a really smart tree person. So it's a little bit of a quandary, because I think if we had the second app, and if we had a second team, we could start on the parks, once we're done with the street trees, which it would be great to do. It would be great to do the park areas where people are hanging out and where cars are, and where there's places where there are a lot of ash trees that are going to soon leave us. So that's about it. That's about it. I mean, I don't have enough. Anything else I could tell you would be pretty anecdotal at this stage.
Matt, I have just a few questions. So you were kind enough to send me an email with the numbers, the kind of the breakdown of the 3,422 trees. You said on there hazardous trees 66.
I just extrapolated that number. I should have said that on the memo. I extrapolated that number based on the previous rough analysis I did of the first 2,200 trees. In other words, if this trend plays out, so that's not correct. I mean, that's just, I probably I should have said, I don't know, because I haven't really looked
Oh,
at
that's okay. Then we can just say extrapolate it. That's
It's totally extrapolated.
And the same thing for the trees in severe decline?
All those categories are just based on what I would say would be, a percentage based on previous analysis.
Okay, that's great. And then last time when you did it, you said that Garrett Hill was one of the bare areas that you noticed. Have you noticed other bare areas?
Yes.
Okay.
There are, the best way to actually get you that information is there's a mapping function that I can produce that shows each subsection of Radnor and its street tree canopy. And maybe that's just something I should produce before we do the grand analysis, so that people can see where the gaps are.
Yeah, that would be great, and even just qualitatively, as you're doing all this, if there's any certain neighborhood that comes to mind that, hey, this is an area in need, I think that's fine too.
Well, certainly, South Wayne around Catherine of Siena is not an area in need of trees.
Yeah.
But where the bank is Santander Bank, some of those Farm Road might be okay, but some other roads up in that area the trees are pretty old, or they're diseased, or they're missing. Garrett Hill, brutal, just that could be ground zero for us. There's no doubt about that. And you know, and any new developments without wires, without street trees, generally don't, like Ravenscliff doesn't need any trees.
Yeah.
Because people they take care of their properties, they plant the trees they want, and it's just, it has the tree canopy there that, so there are certain places, pockets of new development that I would totally stay away from.
Mhm.
But that's just me talking. I mean, as a commission, we should go over all this, I think, when we have the analysis and,
Mhm.
yeah.
How do we find another team for you, Matt? I mean, is it something that we could advertise on, you know, maybe our Facebook page for retired arborist or somebody like that that would have time on their hands that has this tree knowledge you're talking about? Does it take a certain set of skills to be able to do the mapping part that you do?
No, no, so the recording, the measuring, is all, it's all arithmetic, it's all, it's very basic, like you just have to be consistent.
Okay.
And, no, and so, actually, the evaluation aspect, and John, I don't know, tree companies do this with, certified arborists. Now, Jane is, so, like, I'm comfortable that although she's not working for a tree company, she has
Mhm.
street cred.
Mhm.
So, but that's what you need, because I just don't think you want someone doing the survey
Yeah, it'd be-
who is like thinking that they're looking at a black cherry that's really an
Yeah.
elm, and, it's not, it's in great shape, and they call it hazardous, and
Yeah.
like, and we are erring on the side of a tree not being, if a tree's ready to fall down, we're calling Bob Z. or Steve McNellis. We're not even waiting for the analysis. So we're erring on the side of that tree looks like it's in decline, but, it's not, I'm not going to put a tree in a category where we're screaming and yelling help when if it's not there, and that's where Jane is very helpful for me. So anyway, I don't know how we get another team, but we have the hardware.
Do you know any retired arborists, John? I mean, I'm not in that world at all.
My resources, but most of the guys are going to want to get paid for that type of work. So we really need a Radnor volunteer.
So maybe I'll talk to Molly and see if she could put it on our Facebook
Yeah.
page.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's definitely a non-paying position. It's usually a volunteer, just like Matt and his wife. So
Okay.
it should be, a resident of Radnor.
But I think that's a
It's
good.
kind of a strange, just an idea. Like, could we ever employ an intern? Like maybe somebody from Cornell or Penn State that's pursuing like a horticultural degree as a summer intern potentially?
I guess that's a question for Bob Z. We should definitely pose.
I had called also, when we talked about this, I think last
Yeah.
year, Temple, and I think Penn State and somebody else,
Yeah.
and I never got
Okay.
I followed up, but never heard back from anybody.
Right. Okay.
We can still try again.
Yeah.
Could we do try to talk to a school and do a scholarship for somebody, like a $1,000 grant or scholarship or something?
Yeah, I'm thinking like, could we use our $35 that we get per tree, like the $3,000 and,
Go towards somebody's tuition?
yeah. And they
I
survey
mean,
the
I'd want to
trees
make sure
for
they
us.
were like getting ready to graduate so that they had enough knowledge. We're not going to get a freshman kind of thing. I mean, if we're going to be using somebody who's, an intern or a student of some sort, he's got to have enough knowledge base.
Yeah, well, they fill out an application, we look over it, and
Well, it sounds like
People
too, we need to decide whether or not we want a certified arborist or someone that's not certified but very knowledgeable. It sounds like we're probably erring on the side of certified arborist. And that's where you would receive the most help from versus someone just,
That's the best case scenario and stuff, but I think someone who, I know people who love trees and know trees who aren't, certified, but they are competent.
right.
And I think that's John would have to weigh in on whether that was acceptable, but someone who was just a tree person, who understands tree health, who understands how to identify trees. I mean, there are people who are laymen who are very good at that. It's just finding someone who has the time and interest. So I think the advertising of it in some way that's a great way to try to fix it.
Okay, see what we can do.
Well, the tree survey will be consumed in the capacity of just finding bare areas, hazardous. So, are there any other use cases that this would be used for?
I think the parks.
The parks?
Because we've only done the street trees, so the parks would be what we would start to tackle in
Mhm.
2020.
Also, I think it's one of the, I hate even talking about this, but it's one of those things where once you start the survey work, it's not like, oh, it's 2021 and we don't have to survey anymore.
All the time.
I hate thinking about it, but it's like, it's true, like you have to, because things change.
Right.
And also, all the new trees we're putting in, like we want, those aren't in the survey, but you want to record, how are they doing? Like, you know, if they're 2 years old and they still have the gaiters on them, let's get the gaiters off them. And if they're 3 years old and they have wires on them, they're not walking away at that point, take the wires off them. And Jane and I run into trees that are dying because they're gaitered.
At least the ones that we plant, we could do via email. You know, kind of like we could go back to those that we planted last fall and say, hey, it's been a year now, hopefully your tree is doing well. You can remove the stakes and the gaiters. Yeah.
Or maybe it's another way to involve residents who have a tree that they got from us to say, like, here's how you can give us the information that then we can build it into the survey. So a lot of this is photos too. So like the survey, all the trees are photographed. So I think it shows, you know, a resident could say, I'm taking a photo of my new cherry tree, and then you could say, oh, that looks like it's in great shape from the photo. So it's just another source of input.
Right, right.
And one idea that I had that might help with maintenance in the future is satellite imagery is becoming more and more readily available. You know, if we bought every 6 months or every year, or maybe even the township has access to a service that does this, but then map year over year and look for additions, removals.
That's a great idea. That's actually something we've wanted to do and wish, you know, I talked to Steve Norsini about that. Like, is it some way we could even capture what it looked like 10 years ago? And versus now to say, have we lost canopy, gained canopy? Yes, that would be great.
The publicly available satellite imagery it's getting more and more often that those imageries are being taken, but we can go pretty far back. And I'd be more than happy to
Oh, that'd be great.
maybe not do all of Radnor. I'll just pick, you know, a couple hot spots.
Yep.
Matt, do you have any ideas of maybe in the past 10 years or so, if there's any good areas to maybe do this as a experiment
I
on?
would start around Villanova, Garrett Hill,
Okay.
Villanova, James, your street, where you grew up on, is a poster child for beautiful canopy when you were 15, right? And not much now.
Okay.
In the park, like down all the street.
Where did you grow up, James?
Larry's Lane. Do you guys, are you interested in the scholarship thing, or is that way off? Because if you want a certified arborist to do this, we can look up who's certified right now, and you're not going to find anybody in Radnor Township, probably, maybe a handful. So you're going to have to look outside the township,
I like the idea of
and then
doing
you're not going to look for a volunteer, then it's going to be somebody you're going to have to pay.
Right, so I do like the scholarship idea, like somebody that has an interest, is going to school for this, and.
I think anybody, yeah, after 2 years,
Yeah.
will be able to pass a certified arborist test. So I think they'll have the,
Well, Matt, to your point, I
Knowledge.
think it's better to have a team, two-person team at least, to do this, just for checks and balances and keep it moving. So maybe the scholarship is the recorder, and then maybe we find a volunteer that is very adept with tree knowledge.
Yep.
And that's the two-person duo.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my world, it has to be two people. In John Hosbach's world, I think he does it all by himself, but when he surveys. But having two people moves it along, and especially when you're on roads. Like,
Right.
it's like, it's a little safer.
Right. Well, and just confirmation of.
But I think an intern, like somebody out of Penn State or Temple would be,
Temple Ambler has good program.
I think that might be something we could at least go to as far as to seeing if we could fund it, and then interviewing a few folks if they were interested, and then finding out how comfortable we were with it.
Come up with a tree test. If you can identify these 20 trees, you're in.
You're good. You're in. Okay, so I'll put that in the budget. I'll show the $3,000 going in. I'll show the $3,000 going out. I'll just kind of tag it as an internship line. And at least it's a placeholder. We'll find out if it's enough money or not enough money. I don't know. Think so? Okay.
Yeah, or maybe rather than labeling it specifically, in and out, maybe just label it for survey.
Survey.
Survey
Yep.
needs.
Yep. No, that's perfect. Okay.
My brother used to get one from the wards,
Oh,
Mrs. Ward over at Temple.
Yeah.
And, that was years ago, but it helps.
yeah. Yeah, we could also try the tree companies in the township, like Bartlett and Shriner. They have tons of folks that work for them. Would they want to make some extra money during the summer? I don't know. They would be knowledgeable, I would think. Oregon, all of them. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, Matt, wonderful job. That's really a great job that the way you and Jane have done this and actually done 3,400 trees and basically almost completed the whole township in 2 seasons. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I have to give credit to John for finding this Urban Forest Metrics app, because it's really quick.
Mhm.
Everything's in front of you, and so it's
Okay.
like, it's easy to use. And
Okay, that's great. So folks, that was it for the main agenda items. Everything else on the agenda was just a follow-up of action items from last time. Let me just see if there's anything in particular here. Policy 2020. We did have one on there about going through the website and the links, and did I hear correctly? John, have you already done that? Or actually, it was Trish and Steve, so I'm sorry. Trish, did you already do that?
So we updated the checklist, so that's up there. It's correct.
Okay.
It's revised. It had to be completely redone. The web, the links, we need to really sit down with Ian and help us get those things under control and fixed. But as of right now, there may be some links that are still not working.
Yeah, I think
But
that
we are working on them.
the main one was the tree formula on the checklist was incorrect, and I see that that's updated, so I think that was probably the most important.
Okay,
One.
good. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
I think that's about it. Let me go. So for old business, Philippone Beauconnor La Maison, Warren Philippone Park. I think the old business was the vine removal on Philippone Beauconnor La Maison.
well, that park, they had that park closed, basically. They're redoing the parking areas and I don't know how far they're
It's
getting into the.
trees, right?
Yeah, I don't know how far they're getting into the vining issue, but, a lot's going on there.
Okay, so is there anything really there for us to do? Or can this be removed from old business?
I
Because
think
it
we
sounds
should
like
take
the
it.
township is taking care of
I
it.
think we should remove it.
Okay.
I mean, this whole parks maintenance issue is, I mean, that's something to deal with, but I think we have
That's a
enough
much
on our
larger
plates right now.
topic, yeah. And so then I assume.
I can speak a little bit
Oh,
to
go
that.
ahead.
What's going on in Bow Connor and Philippone is bond work to the township, so a lot of it's infrastructure. There's, new resurfacing, parking lots, et cetera. And there are some trees that were taken down and some trees that are being replaced. But there is nothing in that line item that I've seen with vine removal.
With vine removal. I know that previously vines were removed, and then we went through the process of getting quote to remove vines, but can we assume maybe that's in the Parks Court?
Well,
Claire?
I don't know if we want to assume anything, because it's just not on the, no, not the radar, is not the word I'm looking for. It's not listed in the line item of what's happening in that park that we saw at Parks and Rec, our last meeting.
Right.
So I would say we should at least keep it in to remind the township and parks that we're still care about it.
I'm thinking kind of otherwise. I'm thinking, can we put that in the Parks and Rec Committee? Can that be the Parks and Rec Committee responsibility to assess what the health is of that park and whether there needs to be vine removal? And since you already have a lot of work going on with the township there.
We certainly can, and it comes up, we take turns being stewards, so I happen to bring that up every single time I make a note on that park. But because that park is under construction, that's not being addressed at this point.
Okay.
Unless, do you know anything different, John?
Yeah. Laura?
Parks and Rec does their walkthroughs. In fact, you guys are in the beginning of it. Maybe it's not going to happen this season, but maybe next season, it might be nice to coordinate with Shade Tree and have somebody on the commission go on a walk at one of the parks with one of the other Park and Rec committee people. So there's a crossover. Because there always seems to be our Shade Tree's interest of, yes, vines. They're everywhere in the parks.
Yeah.
But if you go to a Park and Rec meeting, they don't want to talk about it. It's really, they know, but it's just a lot more to think about.
Yeah.
So I think if the synergy starts to kind of weave through and each group is talking with each other, there might be a little bit more of an awareness of the need and then the budget.
Yeah. And we could also bring it up during the maintenance discussion.
Well, yes, we definitely should.
That, I mean, it would fall there. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so we'll remove it from old business here with the idea that, hey, vines will fall under maintenance, and Parks and Rec is already doing a lot of work on this park as we speak now, so we'll take this off the table for us. Okay, great. So under new business, discussion of tree maintenance. I think everybody saw by email that's scheduled for October 30th. I'll wait for the township to confirm that, but that was one of the dates they offered, and we put November 14th as the backup. Matt's our leader of that discussion, and I think we just have to either check in with the BOC or do it ourselves. Are there others that we want to have at that meeting other than just the BOC, the township, and ourselves?
I was talking to John earlier tonight, and I think that what we need to do first is find out from Bob Z. or Steve Norsini exactly what the parameters and protocol of this meeting is. What is this meeting designed to do? What is it? What is the ground it's going to cover? And what is the focus? Because I think we need to come to that. Someone needs to do some research. I'm willing to do some research on this whole maintenance issue with other townships that are like us, because I'm not sure this is laser focused right now, from what I've heard. So I don't think it should devolve into a meeting where people just start complaining about the responsibility of the township versus the responsibility of the residents. I think it should be more thoughtful than that. So I will talk to Bob Z and Steve and try to get an idea of what are they really after here? Because Bob Z was like, I can't afford $1 million, but, so let's just put it on the residents. That was sort of the tone of what he said, and I just want to make sure that if that's what he wants this to be, fine. But I think he might have some deeper thoughts about where he wants this to go. And that would help us decide who to invite, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
But I think this first meeting might just be, we're not going to solve this in one meeting. So the first meeting might just also be getting to the table with the BOC.
And I think what would help, to your point, I agree, is just having an agenda and what are like the key questions that we want to ask, or what do we want to get out of the first meeting? That would be great. So Matt, if you liaison with Bob and Steve,
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
happy to do that.
yeah, that'll be super. Okay.
Since I'm the fearless leader.
Yes, I know. I like that. Okay. Last two topics are kind of easy, hazardous trees. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, James, go ahead.
Two things.
Yeah.
One was for the budget. I think we should put something in there for the Wayne Business District, bring it up somewhere, because I think somebody's going to need to water those trees next spring or do some work on them. If you look at the corner of Lancaster, they just did, I think they spent 25 grand, the township, approved by the commissioners or whatever, and half the stuff is dead. Giant waste of money.
Where is this?
The corner of Lancaster and North Wayne. And so that's what's going to happen if we don't have, these are young trees, they should be watered. They need to be pruned next year at some point, just to get them
James, just to let
established.
you know, me and Norsini are already on that. We're putting together a little schedule for next spring and summer. Yep.
Okay.
So we started on that the other day.
I would,
Yep.
Perfect.
maybe, let's put that, I would vote to put that right under the maintenance discussion. Maybe it would even help focus the maintenance discussion
Yeah,
if we
that
start
that
small
job
with
was
just the
$600,000 for that whole
That-
project. That's
Yeah, so that's a
going to be
big
a complete waste of
investment.
money of everybody up here,
Yeah.
I think. So that was one thing. The other thing was, if we're going into the discussion with the board, if it's okay, if you guys think it's a good idea, I could talk to somebody at Lower Merion, somebody at Haverford, see if I can get the numbers that they spend per year, just so we have something to
That'd be great.
back it up.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to do it without consensus of everybody, but I think it would be good to have some numbers so everybody knows there's no point in wasting time.
I think that would be wonderful. I love benchmarks. Yeah, and that's why I thought, the day may even come like where we want to invite Chanticleer, because they obviously have to do maintenance there. So even just help with regards to budget.
I think that would be
helpful.
totally different because they have so much money.
Oh, okay.
Totally different ballgame, I think.
Different.
I think,
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's
Right.
okay, then just
They
go
have a
with
lot of
the,
help there.
they have a lot of help. They're
Okay.
very well
okay,
established.
that's fine. So
But
then
I
we'll
think
go with
Lower
the
Merion, Haverford, they're both have tree crews,
comparable?
and
Okay,
we can see what they spend,
okay,
stuff like that.
great.
Yeah, I know. That's why you can put everything to rest, instead of going back and forth.
Right.
Okay. And then last item, trees removed by Radnor Township this month, unusually kind of low, 2 trees. 2 very big trees, but 2 trees. So, anything else before we close the meeting? No? Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice evening.